Colleagues at Aspect who are supporting this workshop. Aspect Creative Manchester and the broader deep dive project that this is all part of is a 6-month project that we're embarking on, looking into the ways in which business engagement can liaise much more closely and much more intimately with the cultural sector. Ultimately, the end outcome is to produce a good practice toolkit for researchers and cultural partners to forge stronger business engagement links. Something in particular that in schools like our own, arts, languages and cultures, and in other areas of the university, we've been striving to attain for quite a few years now. Today's workshop will feed into that project, and we aim to use today to inform some of the research going forward that's taking place within the project. We have an opportunity to hear some excellent speakers today, some of whom are colleagues past and present, to hear some business engagement case studies of current collaborations. And then we're going to ask, if you don't mind, a little work of yourselves. And we're going to move out into some breakout rooms, ask a few questions of you, and think about the way in which we might move some of the philosophical, but also some of the practical and pragmatic questions that we're setting for ourselves forward. So we want to have that discussion in smaller groups, and then we'll report back towards the end of this hour-and-a-half long session to see what kind of answers and what kind of issues we can take forward over the course of the coming weeks and months. As always with these, even when we're dealing with things remotely, I have a little bit of housekeeping to run through, if you don't mind. We'd ask that for the time being, all participants keep their cameras switched off until we come to the breakout sessions. Then obviously, please, it would be much more welcoming and nice that you have your cameras on and we can engage in a good discussion with all. You're probably used to the idea of staying muted on Zoom or Teams or whatever you use throughout. So can we ask you as well to mute your sound for the time being so we can avoid some background noise. Just a reminder too that this is an event that's being recorded. The breakout rooms won't be recorded, and although I'll be taking some notes and writing a few things down, if you did want to take some notes in the breakout rooms, then either be at your keyboard ready or have the old-fashioned pen and paper to hand if there are things that you want to take from that. Please set your view to speaker view as well, if you don't mind. That would be enormously helpful for us. One thing we do encourage you to use, if you don't mind, is the chat function throughout. Do that to introduce yourself to the participants this afternoon, and by all means comment and interact on the workshop as we go forward. We'd be very pleased and very happy to take comments there. And obviously we can harness those comments and take them forward later. Finally, if you're a Twitter user and you're used to your online media world, then by all means, please do tweet about today's event. You can use the handle at UOM Creative Manchester. So it's U-O-M, creative with a capital C, and then MCR, all capitals. All together. I've got the important job of timekeeping today, so I should get on with it a little bit, shouldn't I? We've got a packed 90 minutes ahead of us, and we want you to get as much as possible out of this workshop. To kick things off, we'd like to begin, if the technology will allow us, by running a quick poll. We've got 4 questions for you, and those should soon appear on your screens. And if you take a few moments, you only have to do a very quick click on each one. If you take a few moments to answer those, we'll share the results together and let you know a little bit of a quick outcome to that very quick straw poll that we're engaging in. So if you'd like to do that, and hopefully those will come to you now and you'll be able to see them.
If you could now just cast your votes, that would be great. So our results are displayed now. So
I see that coming to the top of each of those questions in the poll are the kind of questions and the kind of answers that we're most definitely seeking in this project. So that's very reassuring to know that we're heading down a path that's clearly resonant with a lot of colleagues here in the meeting. I'm going to introduce two colleagues for business engagement and aspect in a moment or so who know a great deal about this subject and who are working with us actively in the university and within the school and faculty on this area. I'm aware I haven't really introduced myself properly yet, have I, in many ways? I should do that really to you before we go any further, or you'll wonder who's exactly comparing this for the afternoon. So my name is Professor Ian Scott. I'm a professor in English American Studies here at Manchester, but for the purposes of this, I'm the school's director for business engagement, for social responsibility, internationalization, and in fact, most of the school's external relations activities. So that's why it's my very pleasant duty to be able to kind of lead you through the workshop for part of this afternoon. The two people I'd like to introduce now, though, will give you a little bit of a feel for some of those questions that we've just asked you and give you an idea of the way in which we're trying to begin to engage business and the cultural sector that much more prominently. Adam Winship and Alex Riley are from our business engagement team. Alex in charge of Aspect, Adam really a liaison with us in the School of Arts, Languages and Cultures, working in BE, and the ways in which we can begin to forge many of the relationships we want to talk about this afternoon. So I'm going to introduce them to you now. I'm not sure which one's going to go first, so I'm going to let them. You go first, Adam. Yeah. So I'm going to let them fight for that a little bit. But it's very nice to have them here, and we're grateful for their time and expertise and their contribution and help to getting the funding for this workshop and for the project over the next 6 months. So Adam and Alex, thanks ever so much.
No worries. Like I say, I'll start. My name's Adam Winship. I'm the Business Engagement Manager for Humanities. It's been an interesting time for business engagement in humanities. We've lost a couple of people. We've gained a couple of people. And this is a sector which is really, really interesting. So what I'd first like to say is I welcome you all to this today, and I hope it's a real productive hour and a half. I also want to thank Ian, Anne-Marie and Alex for kind of setting all this up, which is, you know, you've done a great job. It's been an interesting time for business engagement. We've kind of got, we went through a restructure, review, whatever you kind of want to call it. And unfortunately, the head of business engagement has recently left. So we have to wait to see on that front. But this is a really interesting sector. It's something that I'm really keen to kind of get my teeth into. So I kind of took over the Aspect project, which Alex shortly will kind of describe to you. And we've brought in a good amount of money, just under about $500,000. Unfortunately, I tried to work with Ian on one, and it didn't get funded, which was a shame. But you know, it's kind of just growing that experience, that expertise, and just you know, just trying to kind of develop relationships, if you like. But we've got really good links now with Cardiff, Oxford, LSE. And it looks like the programme, I don't want to call it a project because there's a number of projects under the programme umbrella, but it looks like it could be kind of progressing further than what we'd imagine. I don't know what that means in terms of funding, so I don't want to make any kind of promises there, but we've done well. We've worked really hard for it, and Alex Riley is actually funded by the Aspect project. to kind of project manage and do a lot of the kind of the operational stuff. So Alex, can I pass over to you? Are you there?
Yeah, sure.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for that, Adam. And yeah, so I'll just add to what Adam and Ian have already said by just giving you some more brief contextualizing information on Aspect. So Aspect is it's an inter-university network. It's funded by Research England's Connecting Capabilities Fund. And to put it very briefly, its aim is to, as Adam and Ian have already touched on, is to build the profile and sort of raise sort of greater awareness of the value of business engagement and research commercialization in the social sciences, but also in the arts and humanities. If you're familiar with iCure in the biological medical sciences, this is very much an attempt to sort of replicate the sort of success they've had with that, and to establish that institutional capacity for supporting business engagement and research commercialization in our disciplines, arts and humanities, social sciences, that have found success in other disciplines. So as part of this overall aim, Aspect, like Ian mentioned, we're very much interested in showcasing best practice, in bringing together, academics and university professionals and people from industry and fostering those relations. So today's workshop fits really well within that remit, and I think what Creative Manchester are doing is really exciting, and I'm really interested to sort of discuss the challenges and issues that come out of business engagement in this industry. So yeah, I think I'll hand it off to Anne-Marie now.
Great, thank you very much to Adam and Alex for that introduction and that overview. That's brilliant. Hello everybody, my name is Anne-Marie Nunez. I'm the Creative Manchester Manager. I'm going to give you a really quick overview of what is Creative Manchester. I do have some slides, but only really so I can say next slide, please, in all honesty. So if you could, kind person in the background, move on to the next slide, please, that would be wonderful. For those that aren't familiar with the project Creative Manchester, I thought it'd be good to just take you right back to the beginning, give you a bit of an overview as to where we've started and what really the vision is for the project. So we've been going for 2 years now. We started officially on the 2nd of October in 2018. We have been funded entirely by the University of Manchester, for which we are very grateful. We have been awarded £3.3 million over the course of 4 years. And it's very much a university-wide project. So although the project was initially born within the School of Arts, Languages and Cultures, which is part of the Faculty of Humanities, the intention is very much that it's a university-wide, cross-disciplinary project that cuts beyond the arts and beyond humanities. So we envisage arts and science, arts and engineering, way beyond the traditional disciplines of humanities. Next slide, please. So moving on to the vision of the project, very much the project is intended to position the university within the creative industry sector through the 3 core goals. And that really is through our teaching and learning programmes, our research and discovery, and through our social responsibility activities. So everything Creative Manchester does is through those lenses. One of our key strategic aims is obviously to strengthen the current collaborations. The university has invested in the cultural industries for a very long time, and so already had certain collaborations set up. Perhaps what we didn't have is the time and the resource to manage and nurture those partnerships and those relationships. So very much part of my day-to-day work is about those collaborations and strengthening them. But also another part is forging new ones. So obviously with the business engagement hat in mind today, thinking about, which really key strategic areas we would focus on within the creative industries. And obviously, one of our key aims is about creating this talent pipeline for the ever-growing creative industries, which perhaps pre-COVID-19 was growing at 5 times the rate of any other sector within the UK. So we have this fantastic opportunity to produce the next generation of those working within the sector. And that's across different forms. So we are involved in the pipeline in terms of screenwriting, creative writing, the music industry, film, and also digital. Okay, so next slide, please. As well as obviously forging those external collaborations with partners across the city and internationally, actually, it has to be said, we also have really, really strong partnerships within our own cultural institutions. And actually, we're very fortunate in that regard and quite unique as a university to have our own creative campus and to actually own our own Manchester Museum, the Whitworth Art Gallery, the John Rylands Library on Deansgate, the Martin Harris Centre for Music and Drama, and obviously the wonderful Blue Dot Festival over at the Jodrell Bank Observatory. So we're quite fortunate to have this already established creative campus network. Next slide, please. So thinking about our business engagement achievements, obviously business engagement is a key strand for Creative Manchester and a key one of our strategic aims and our KPIs going forward. We really want to strengthen and build these opportunities for researchers, but also strengthen those opportunities for the cultural sector as well. Now, I thought it might be useful to give you a sense of what we've already achieved in what has only been 2 years so far. That's not to say there's lots more to do. We have big ambitions and we want to really grow in this area and increase the number of partnerships that we're forging. But just to give you an idea of what has happened already in this area. So since we started back in 2018, we've already firmed up lots of key industry partnerships. You can see some of the logos there of the types of partners. So we've set up a collaboration with Manchester City of Literature, the organisation that runs our City of Lit designation that we've had since 2017 in Manchester. We are the official higher education partner for Manchester Literature Festival. We have a partnership with Lime Pictures, Carcanet Press, Home, Manchester Camerata, Contact Theatre, Manchester International Festival. I'm going to forget somebody, but these, just to give you a sense of the types of strategic partnerships that we have set up. We've also really built our business engagement in terms of our new programmes. So within Creative Manchester, since the project has been going, we've launched quite a lot of new programmes like heritage studies, playwriting, screenwriting, and what we've really tried to do is think strategically about how we develop those programmes. So we've really worked closely with industry partners, so professionals who are in the industry, thinking about what the employability skills are that those people are looking for from our graduates, and with that in mind, developing programmes that are meaningful and would match those skills once those graduates have left the university. We've also built up our profile of student placement opportunities and internships. So thinking beyond the study period within the university about really accumulating those industry skills that are needed and giving students the opportunity to engage with and to work with those cultural partners in the sector with whom they may be working once they've graduated. We've also launched a programme of creative residencies with the John Rylands Research Institute based in the library. And that really is to give new graduates or early career researchers opportunities to have a period within the library to access the archives, the creative archives, and for that to inform their creative work and outputs. We've also set up a collaborative doctoral award or been awarded a collaborative doctoral award. And essentially this is a PhD, so a postgraduate researcher who works with the university, but also in collaboration with a cultural partner. So ours has been set up with Community Arts Network and the Drama Department, and that is for Ambrose Musiiwa, who's doing a 3-year postgrad on refugee heritage and the artist's work. We're also inputting to early career researcher training, specifically on the sector in this area, actually, thinking about how they can engage with the cultural sector and disseminate their research to the cultural sector and engage in partnerships that are meaningful and help create more impact for their research and also impact for the partner, of course, as well. Next slide, please. There are more achievements. I'll touch on this briefly because it may be covered slightly later on in one of our case studies, but for a 6-month period of this year, earlier on, we welcomed a Simon Industrial Fellow from Manchester Camerata. And essentially, the Simon Industrial Fellowship is an opportunity for people who are employed in industry to spend a period of time within the university. And we focused on a specific project with Manchester Camerata on arts and health, so specifically around their work around music and dementia. We also have invested a research associate in PEC, which is the really unfortunate short acronym for the Policy and Evidence Centre. And the Policy and Evidence Centre is part of Nesta, and they carry out independent research and policy recommendations for the creative industries. So we've embarked in research projects commissioned by the GMCA and various other organisations across the region. We've also, as part of Creative Manchester, awarded cultural engagement grants. Now, specifically, these are to help academics go off and forge partnerships and projects and cultural engagement opportunities with players in the sector, with grassroots organisations, with community organisations that otherwise would not be able to take place. And we've also applied for various pots of funding. Now, the reason I'm mentioning this, an aspect is obviously one of those for which we're really grateful, but also the British Council, the SRC. The reason I'm mentioning it is because none of those have been in isolation. So any pot of funding that we've applied for, any grant application, has been made in collaboration with one of our industry partners. And I think that's a really crucial point, that actually that collaboration, that partnership strengthens our application and hopefully does so for our partners as well when they're applying for funding. Okay, so next slide, please. So that's my whistle-stop tour of Creative Manchester. I thought it would be really useful to share 2 case studies with you. So in terms of how we collaborate and 2 very different partners actually, and 2 very different models of collaboration and business engagement. And actually they'll probably give it warts and all. So there's obviously lots of positives, we hope, but I'm sure there are challenges, obstacles and certain things of working with a HEI as well. So our first case study will be the CEO of Manchester Camerata, Bob Riley, and then we have the founder and MD of Carcanet Press, Michael Schmidt, and associate publisher, John McAuliffe. So I will leave it there and pass on to Bob, if that's okay, who I can introduce to talk through Manchester Camerata's case study. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. Actually, I want to start firstly by thanking a few people, but principally Anne-Marie, whose amazing work has made so much possible, not just for us, but so many people. So huge thank you and virtual round of applause for you, Anne-Marie. It's amazing working with you. There are other people, and I'm going to thank them by name, and there's a reason for that, because all of this collaboration is only possible because of people and the relationships and the trust that we all build. So I noticed that Simon Parry is on this call, and Simon was involved right at the outset of our work with the university. So thank you, Simon. Also Caroline, Professor John Keedy, Becky, who's one of my colleagues, Steve Dauncey, Abby Gilmore, and also Andy Wilkinson. So and it's really important to thank you all, because the collaboration word, which I now don't need to talk about because you have so brilliantly, Anne-Marie, all of that's only possible because of those people. So 3 parts to what I'd like to share with you today. The first is it's about values, and it's really quite brief. I'd then like to show you a video, and then to talk about the future. And hopefully you'll see from that why the relationship with the university has been so important. So the values bit and purpose is, I think, is hugely important. Kind of sounds obvious that, but you know, it's worth checking in with it. Innovation and curiosity, learning, research, excellence, you know, those are all words that appear, I think, in the university's vision, but also in Camerata's. And the reason for all of those is that we are here to make an impact for the benefit of others. And again, that sustained impact is a really, really important point I'd like you to hold with you. During this journey with the university, our vision, I suppose, has changed slightly. So when we first began the relationship with the university back in 2011 and 12, we had a vision which read, redefine what an orchestra can do. And there's a piece of press which appeared yesterday, and I want to read you a quote from it. It sounds a bit showy-offy, but it's not meant in that way. There's a purpose to it. It now reads, "An experimental wild child in the staid world of classical music." And really, when I read that and thought about this session, I know there is no way that we could have achieved the things that are behind that statement without the university. So there you go. Anyway, hopefully there is somebody behind the scenes about to press go on a fantastic video, which you can watch before I talk a little more about how we've achieved that. So if magically that could appear, that would be amazing.
I like singing. I like the music that we do here because there's no pressure.
The idea is to pair up a music therapist like myself with one of the orchestral musicians from the Manchester Camerata and deliver very interactive music making sessions.
We've been coming here for the past 8 weeks or so, and it has helped us a lot as a couple. It gives me time to spend with Patrick.
The more they are able to join in with the music, the more they reconnect with themselves or connect with the people in the room, become aware of each other and feel this lovely sense of group music making.
Thank you for that. So what I'd like to talk about next, really, just to give you a sense of how this partnership started and the length of time, so you get a bit of an idea about the context of it. It started with the School of Nursing, Midwifery and Medicine, which is perhaps not where you'd expect it to start. That relationship was founded on exactly what you've just seen. So the idea that music could make a positive impact for those living with dementia and those caring for them. And that's been a very, very important program for us over the last 8 years together. It's been very important to develop that work. So at every step of the way, Prof. John Keedy and others have inputted into how we were delivering that work, just as it was being researched. So there's a PhD published in 2018, and we just with colleagues applied to the ESRC for a further period of research. The importance of that work, of course, is that that's part of our business mission, part of our charitable purpose is to be making that impact, that positive impact in a part of society that really needs it. And my God, how it needs it right now, but I'll come to that in a second. The other part of our work, which began to develop later, was looking at how musicians develop whilst they're delivering work like that. And so when Anne-Marie arrived in 2018, that's when we began talking about that aspect of things, how musicians could develop, how we could develop, how we produced the performance work for musicians as well. And so we have a shared role, creative producer Becky, who is on the call now. And that really enables us to learn even more and take forward all sorts of aspects of work that we simply wouldn't be able to without, both from a capacity point of view and a capability, knowledge and research point of view. So all of that helps us continue sustain our impact. I want to return to the Music in Mind program, which is what you watched there, and that whole program is based around improvisation. Now, that is not something that classical musicians are specifically known for. That's not the core kind of musical skill, if you like, but it's something that's developed and learnt. And I'm mindful that one of our players there, Naomi, the horn player, who quite simply says it's the best thing she has done in her career. And it's because it makes that impact. So when we hit COVID in March, we'd already begun a set of conversations with the Innovation Factory at Manchester University, and that's been a really critical conversation, because it was about the impact that we were currently making through Music in Mind, but trying to seek other ways to extend that, because as you can imagine, a few musicians delivering maybe to 20 or 30 care homes doesn't really scratch the surface. So we'd already had the idea to build a new platform which would take aspects of that work to train carers to be able to deliver that. And I'm really glad to say that through the support of the business school at the university, we wrote a business report to really look at what that opportunity might be. And that's led to us now successfully applying to Innovate UK to build a platform, which is now built, which we're testing out, and now writing a business plan for how that might develop over the next 3 years. So again, it's all the backbone of that has been that research relationships, which started back in 2012. It's led to this innovation, and we hope very much that's going to lead to in the future being able to reach and make a positive difference to more people in those care homes. Anne-Marie also touched on the Simons Industrial Fellowship, and that's again been a huge positive to work with Caroline as well on that. Caroline Bithell, the music department's been fantastic. I guess there was a little bit of an interregnum there, you know, where were we going, what direction would it take, and that Simons Industrial Fellowship really helped us to kind of collect those thoughts and find the way forward. In terms of the way forward, there's also an international angle to all of this. So through the Innovation Factory, we've been introduced to various colleagues in the US in higher education. And what's really interesting and coming back at us is us as a partnership, that is how forward thinking this is, that we want to work in this way and develop these aspects. And so we hope that that will be part of our future sustainability as well. I suppose this is the point where I maybe should talk about the things that don't work, because you know it's not all rosy and glowing all the time, although I'd say 90% of what we do is incredibly positive all round. But I think there are big differences between the time and the pace that the cultural, the creative sector has and the higher education sector. There are big differences in the amount of money that we respectively have as well. And those are things, again, this comes back to collaboration and relationships and trust. Those are things that we've had to be patient with each other. And we've had to push each other, frankly, sometimes. I wonder now if it's worth, just as a sort of final provocation back to that experimental wild child, which apparently we've become in the classical music world, is really just thinking about pace, because I think the immense value, knowledge and impact that we can all make together, there's no time to wait on that. That doesn't mean we have to rush things and do things in a bad way. It just means we need to do them more quickly. And so a little like my call to Andy at the Innovation Factory back in April, where I said, right, we have this plan, we were brewing it, we've got to get on with it now. I never would have imagined that sort of 6-7 months later, we'd have built this new platform and be talking to some of the fantastic trusts and universities elsewhere in the world that we were. So that's really where I want to leave off, really, because I think that's it's a great example of what's actually possible if you find people you can trust and press the go pedal. So I hope that's been really helpful. I'm really sorry that I can't stay for the breakout groups or more discussion, but I'd be really happy to talk to any of you, or if there are any questions you want to drop me an email about, I'd be really happy to share more of my experiences working with the university. But just to say a big thank you again to everyone that I thanked at the beginning, but particularly to Anne-Marie for all her work and support, actually. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Bob. I think that really did capture everything that our fruitful relationship has been about. And I think it is important today that we are honest. It's not all rosy, and we have had our encounters and we have had issues along the way, but I feel like we've overcome them together as an extension of the same team, which has been brilliant. So thank you. Brilliant. So if I can invite Michael Schmidt and John McAuliffe to give, again, another perspective on a case study from Carcanet Press.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. I really agree with Bob that naming names is very important. And the first name I want to mention is that of C.B. Cox, Brian Cox, infamous for the Black Papers on Education. He was head of the English department when I was invited to move to Manchester in 1972 to become a part of the staff there. This is before the program balkanized and we had creative writing and American studies. It was all just called the English department. We had Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. And he invited me to come to Manchester because I was running a little tiny press, which I'd founded in Oxford as an undergraduate, and which was doing quite well in the sense that the books that we were producing were being recognized. What makes Brian unusual in those days, so what made him unusual and probably still makes him unusual, is the sense that he believed that his discipline was a living discipline. Many of his friends were poets. They came and visited him. They came and read at the university and so on. And he wanted the department to connect with living literature as well as to connect living literature with its great traditions and its great background. So I name his name. The other name I'd like to mention is that of Fred Ratcliffe, who was the head of the Rylands Library in those days. And first of all, he gave me a room in his cellar in the university library until he discovered I was smoking my pipe down there, and he thought this was not appropriate in a library. And also, when I went to him, we have gone through a series of very, very bad financial situations at Carcanet. And I said, we desperately want some money. Will you buy our archive? He rang Philip Larkin and said, is this an archive worth buying? And he bought the archive. And that began our very close relationship with the Rylands. And in fact, in the longer term, invested the Rylands with a very enormous contemporary archival resource, which is open to the world. And so I think naming is important.
I think I'm going to jump in at various points, but one thing I wanted to say is this archive at the Rylands is a perfect example of the kind of virtuous circle, because the university's investing in the Carcanet archive has subsequently brought back some really brilliant PhD and postdoctoral research and researchers. So young researchers are using that archive more and more in the last decade. And it's a key part of how our department's research strategy in 20th century and contemporary literature is shaped in relation to that archive. So it was generously given, but there have certainly been good consequences for the university.
And we keep our ears to the ground. I mean, Carcanet has over time produced, I think, 5 or 6, well, this year we had one as well, Nobel Prize winners. We've won many awards, and many of the poets that we began publishing many years ago are now studied, are now in the syllabus, both for secondary school and tertiary. And we accumulate papers from those poets which don't relate simply to their publication. I think that the really exciting thing with Brian Cox was that he was willing to nurture a very small enterprise. So Carcanet has been going beside, under, and then occasionally independent of the university for, well, now about 48 years. And it's that sense of continuity that we have in the relationship, and the sense of a kind of growing commitment that has been exciting. And John's coming on board as an associate publisher has been really a further example of this. John, do you want to?
I guess I should say that when I came to Manchester, Carcanet is one of the leading independent publishers of poetry in the UK, which a very good business, publishing up to 50 books a year, and with regular national portfolio Arts Council funding as well. So it became a key place for our undergraduate and our MA students to do internships. And And many of the students who have done a week or have done 2 weeks at Carcanet are now working at national publishers. So we have had at other publishers, some at Carcanet, but others at Faber's, at Cape, at Ebury, at Serpent's Tail. So there's again this sense that our connection with Carcanet has been a real asset to our graduates. And in terms of our excellent students, some of them have gone on to they go on to publish with presses from all across the UK, but a number of them have gone on to be published in PN Review, the journal associated with Carcanet, to publish in Carcanet anthologies and to publish their own books with Carcanet, and are making reputations for themselves. So again, it's been a terrific asset to me as a teacher at the university, as a researcher at the university, and for my students.
Yes, Anne-Marie was talking about things that don't go so smoothly. One thing I found when Alex was talking, one phrase he used, I think he used it 2 or 3 times, was research commercialization. And I see it quite the other way around. I see it as a acculturation of commerce, if you like, that the values that that I as an academic, because I am an academic as well as a writer and a publisher, espouse are not necessarily the values that one immediately associates with commerce. And I think we have a duty, I speak now as it were from my university and poetry side, to bring other values into play. And I think commercialization, to me, has I suppose I'm a child of the 70s, aren't I? So it has a rather degrading ring when it comes to the kind of work most of us go into the universities or go into the arts to perform. And listening to Bob's presentation, I was impressed by the way in which he is not commercializing, if you like. On the contrary, he's bringing the values of his art to play in the community in a very interesting way. We aren't able to do that. We don't have that kind of art, if you like. We don't have that kind of group art, but it was wonderful to hear him speaking like that.
And I might finish by just saying one other thing, which I think is possibly that our relationship with Carcanet taught us about the value of, for our students and for our researchers, of having this great independent and internationally connected partner. And it was certainly key to the way in which Anne-Marie and the team at Creative Manchester were able to make the case for the university's involvement in the UNESCO City of Literature, which again, to show the good consequence of these things, has in the last 18 months or so drawn a number of other publishers in other genres to the city, which again creates further opportunities for our writing graduates and for our students in terms of internships, and develop a sense that Manchester is a place where creative activity and creative and lives which are associated with creative work can be made. I think when I first came here, too many of my best students after an initial spell in Manchester moved to London. And it's a very, which is a great place to go, don't get me wrong, but it's a very healthy development that we have a sense of publishers and the infrastructure associated with publishing in Manchester, to which we are connected.
Yes, I think one little last thing to say is that when you are in Manchester as an arts organization, there's quite a lot of pressure for you to be community related. The idea that there could possibly be a national institution in Manchester has been a bit anathema. And one of the battles we've had to fight is that Manchester is a northern capital, if you like, and that it can house community operations, it can house community arts in lots of ways and doing really good work, but it can also house national operations. And I think that's one thing we've fought to do. Thanks, Anne-Marie.
Michael, John, thank you very much. Did you want to add something, Anne-Marie, quickly?
No, I was just going to offer my thank you, but thanks very much for that. That was a great overview.
Yeah, I think what's so special about that, and what you've really distilled that's very, very important is the fact that for us in the School of Arts, Languages and Cultures, I think I said right at the start, didn't I, that business engagement is not a theme or an issue that comes very easily to our disciplines or our thought processes in lots of ways. And yet here you've got two incredible, brilliant, yet actually quite different in their own ways, case studies that are doing quite a lot of different things with what amounts to business engagement, but not necessarily in the area and with the same kind of themes and ideas that you might necessarily think of in the first issue. And that, I guess, is one of the things that we're keen to kind of explore and promote and think about, particularly in our corner of the university, the way in which business engagement can operate and can produce not only perhaps if you'll forgive me, Michael, a degree of commerce, maybe just a little bit here and there, but it can produce, much more importantly, great art and culture. And it can do that with great support. And that's one of the things that we're very much committed to and interested in. Hopefully you might be as well. Very shortly, we're going to assign colleagues to breakout rooms and give you a chance to go off and talk in smaller groups and have more on these discussions and the really interesting things that Bob, Michael and John were able to talk about there over the last few minutes or so. First of all, I would like to introduce a new colleague to us, Dr. Alicia Ruveral. Alicia is there, I think, in picture now. She'll probably be waving to you as you speak. This is Alicia's, as it were, first week on the job. She actually joined Creative Manchester only a day or two ago as a new research associate. She has been associated with the university over a good period of time. I think she knows John because she was in the creative writing program in our department in 2017. Alicia is a professional writer herself. She teaches creative writing at Salford University, and she's more than 30 years experience in oral history and folklore as both a field worker and a researcher. So she's a perfect exponent for all the things that we want to do here in collecting widespread data and accounts and information about the way in which we might move forward between these two areas and sectors. Alicia is actually going to be working over the course of the next 6 months or so with colleagues from the University of York. And this deep dive is going to look at creative industries, business engagement, if you like, from both the red rose and white rose perspective, both from what's happening in Yorkshire and the way in which colleagues at York are thinking about BE in their own areas. Some of that to do with things like digital gaming, aspects like that. And we're going to compare and contrast that with the ways in which here, through Creative Manchester principally, but also with other colleagues, we're thinking about BE ourselves. Alicia's going to pop into as many of the breakout rooms as she can to say hello over the course of the next 20 minutes or so. And so without further ado, we should move there. We're aware of the time. Inevitably, we're a little bit behind time. It's approaching 5 to 3, but hopefully we can have a talk for the next 20 minutes or so, taking us to 3:15. And then we'll come back and do some reporting and offer a few more final thoughts and remarks. So hopefully, if the technology is playing with us and playing ball, we'll be able to move you along. Welcome back, everybody. It's nice to see you again. Sorry about that. I was making a couple of notes there. As I just said to the group who's been talking here, that's how quickly 20 minutes go by on you. And we were starting to have some really interesting conversations there. We want to kind of feed back on this, but we do want to give people just a little bit of a break. We're aware of timing, but we want to give you just 5 minutes or so until maybe 3:20, just to switch off your video, grab a drink of some kind or stretch your legs, whatever that you might need. And then we'll try and come back in 5 minutes, give some feedback and give you a little bit of an idea of what conversations have been going on in the breakout rooms. And then we'll move towards some closing words and a little bit of a summary of some of the things that we're trying to move towards and how you might be able to help us in the future. So we'll see you back in 5 minutes or so. Please leave your cameras and stuff on. Stick with us if you possibly can, and we'll just give a couple of minutes and then we'll be back to have some further conversations and summaries. Hi, everybody. I hope you managed to take a quick break there just for a few moments or so. Thank you for being with us again. We're aware of time and we want to move straight into some thoughts and ideas that are coming back from the breakout rooms. As I said just before we stopped for a couple of minutes, we were starting to have some really very interesting discussions in many ways. And I wonder if I can pass on over to Alicia just to summarize and bring together some of the thoughts that she was hearing and things that were going on in the various breakout rooms. Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Ian, just so I know what time we have, do we have a moment to get at least just one comment from each of the breakout groups, do you suppose? Just their salient point, just to wrap that up?
Yeah, I think we do. Yeah, if we're reasonably swift about that, yeah, we have a little bit of time to get some reaction. Yeah.
Excellent. That would be great. I just caught bits and bobs of each, but useful all the same. So, Anne-Marie, do you mind if we start? We'll just go in order of numbers numerically. If you could mention key points that came up for.
I'll keep it brief. We had a fantastic discussion, really engaging discussion. But I think for me, the really key thing that came out is that the strict purpose of the engagement and the collaboration should be around shared ambitions and not just funding opportunities. We should think about time, building in time, and there should be excitement and fun. And I thought that really just captured everything for me.
Nice, great, super. Group 2, Rebecca.
Yes, I'll be very, very quick. There was a little bit of hesitancy. We had people in our group from either side, from the academic and from the business side. So we talked a little bit about hesitancy of taking your idea forward, and also feeling maybe a little bit hesitant to ask any questions of the other side. So one of the main points that we would like to suggest would be support. Moving forward, support for both sides. How do you know if your idea is relevant to the other side? So just, yeah, understanding there might be some hesitancy on either side, and how do we broker those relationships?
Great, super. Let's see, group 3, Alex, if you could speak a bit on your group.
Yeah, sure. So we ended up discussing, I guess you could say, maybe the challenges or obstacles that can face, developing really a great business engagement in the creative industries. And one of those was, I think we termed it the potential for engagement fatigue, where especially in Manchester, we're quite lucky because, there are lots and lots of different organizations, but say, if you're in a university, there might be a small pond, so to speak, of opportunities for business engagement. So you end up engaging with the same partners over and over again, and then you have the potential for this fatigue for your collaboration to peter out. And another of the issues that we sort of ended up discussing was the issue of how to sort of keep things going. If that makes sense, how to build sort of constructive engagement, how to make sure engagement, that there's a risk of it being just a one-time thing, that you collaborate and then it's done, or how to engage so that there's a real, direction to what you're doing, there's something constructive coming out of it. Yeah, those are the things we were discussing.
Great, thanks very much. Room 4, Adam.
Yeah, we had a really productive discussion. We discussed a lot of problems and working with big companies, small companies, and actually it was Kevin in Northern Ireland was mentioning how there's not like huge companies there to engage with, so it was dealing with kind of smaller companies and SMEs and things like that. Stephen was talking about, key emphasis should be on like value and impact, and how we kind of get that really from business engagement. And really, I put myself in the firing line. I just said, look, what can we do better as a university on the business engagement side? And it was to do with like research and development work with small companies, and the fact that it can often take too long for them, so we can kind of miss the opportunity. So I did throw that back at Stephen and said that's a finance issue, but it's it can often take too long to engage with the university through contracts, finance, etc. I don't know if any of the others want to kind of add in, but it was good. I've got 3 pages of notes, but if it's just 4 points and I'm conscious of time, then
okay, super. We might want to see those notes or have you share them later potentially. So let's see, Ian, for room 5, if you can give us a bit of a lowdown on your top points here.
Yeah, we've got quite a lot of notes to offer you as well, which will be really good. But for sake of time, maybe 3 here. We had academics and cultural sector entrepreneurs and practitioners, and a couple of colleagues who are really a mixture of the two. And in a way, our couple of key points sort of reflect the dynamics of those kind of colleagues. One was questions about the integration of teaching into some of the cultural practice that we might do, and how that might be beneficial on both sides. There was also a wider question about the way in which the social sciences, as well as the arts and humanities, what the prospective challenge and benefits are for actually engaging within BE. We long from an academic side have the challenge, don't we, of knowing what kind of an output and what kind of a contribution it will make to our research engagement more generally. And so trying to answer those questions very early in a relationship and partnership seemed very important to us. And I guess also from colleagues in the cultural sector themselves, we're talking about the ways in which their overall vision could actually be expressed, particularly to minority ethnic communities who don't necessarily engage with that sector or indeed with institutions, how to communicate a vision that actually is going to be beneficial for all involved, and how to bring in academics with that kind of skill set to work within the cultural sector, who might be able to distill those kind of visions and move a business or organisation in the cultural sector further, as well as contributing to what we, from an academic perspective, would want to get out of such projects or such liaison with organisations. But like Adam, we've got a few more points in there for you as well, Alicia.
Excellent, terrific. Okay, super. Lastly, John McAuliffe, room 6.
Thanks, Alicia. Well, Ruth Welters from Bristol, it was really interesting talking to Ruth, hearing what she had to say about working mostly in a social sciences context. And I guess we were comparing about working in an arts context, and the sense that some of the organizations, some of the larger businesses don't really feel the need for working with university researchers, but that there can be in arts organizations more of a stronger sense of shared need, and also ways of shaping common purpose. And it's really important that researchers and the companies that we work with do have that sense of common purpose. One of the other things that Ruth mentioned as possibly an advantage for those of us working in this sector is that communicating our research and making that clear to companies can be something which is done more straightforwardly. And one of the things we also talked about was that academics in this field, some of them, especially in the creative sides, are also working as freelancers in other areas, and have a sense of connection and networks to lots of other small companies. One of the things I suppose that we looked at as well in relation to that was that it's very often there are very, very tight margins, and that there's a sense of competitiveness for small pots of funding, and that the university occasionally can seem more of a competitor than a collaborator in some of these areas.
Yeah, good point. Okay, terrific. I'm going to take a moment and try to synthesize some of these issues that we have discussed today, and talk a little bit too about the deep dive project at the close of that. So I just wanted to say that, as I think most of you will know from the preliminary information you received from Anne-Marie, our aim here was to bring together creative businesses and researchers, and to look critically and effectively at ways in which they might develop and build stronger links, draw on these existing case studies to inform how these projects develop, and generate some new thinking on how to move outside the box with regard to existing practice and move forward collaboratively to build these crucial links. I do think the two case studies for Carcanet Press and Manchester Camerata have shown that there are a wide variety of, or wide varieties of this kind of work already underway at Manchester. And I think we can learn different kinds of lessons from these projects and then some similar ones as well. I was struck, I'll start with Carcanet in part, I have perhaps a bit more familiarity with it through John, but I was quite struck by the long-term relationship. I think that's an obvious strength of that case study with the university, with key individuals who helped develop that partnership over time. The university investment clearly played a large role in that project. It does sound as though the continuity with key relationships, i.e. for instance, John is now associate publisher, and then reaching out from there, the relationships with students that have come out of the Center for New Writing. We then have an excellence in the field of poetry that's then being promoted and moved forward as these students publish in Carcanet and its various publications and publish elsewhere. It was, I wanted to flag too the international component because I think that is something that came up in both of these case studies as being rather crucial. The ways in which Carcanet was one of many partners, no doubt, in the city that did make possible the fact that Manchester would become a UNESCO City of Literature, which everyone in the room will know was a fairly major turning point and win for the city as a whole. On Camerata, of course, we see a very different kind of project, started, of course, in the School of Nursing and Midwifery and Medicine. While seemingly a shorter term project, this 8-year relationship is not insignificant. And in fact, in some of the initial research I've been doing on these kinds of projects, 10 years and a reach of 10 years is considered not uncommon at all. What I found most striking about this was not only obviously the teaming up of the research knowledge base, capability, knowledge, and research to sustain impact. So some of the role of the researcher in that as well, but also the way in which this future direction of and the innovation factory work is now carrying forward this very good effort. I was mentioning in my prison project in which I used story with both inmates and at-risk youth a number of years ago in North Carolina. Had I undertaken that project now, I would have gotten more funding for that follow-up phase to really take a project forward. And I think that's quite crucial from where I've stood with the kind of work I've done. So I was quite struck by that. Again, there's an international component to that project as well as they've built ties in the US. I've found that very exciting. And last I knew, certainly when I first came to Manchester, internationalization and building on international ties is something quite crucial and important to the university. So I commend both of these projects. In terms of the themes that came up in the groups, I was quite struck too with this point about a shared ambition and the need for alignment of principle. This came up in some of the very good webinars that Aspect has been producing. If you don't have time for the full hour, watch the 6-minute piece in which they've got their top speakers sharing their feedback. I found those super helpful. This shared ambition, the lining up of principles seems crucial. The role of impact, but again, the alignment of the impact that each group is after, I think that's quite crucial as well. I think facing the very real challenges, I think it was actually Adam we talked about, if I have that right, we talked about the problem, or maybe it was Bob, the problem of pace and different time schemes. I think Bob was talking about this, about time and pacing and how that can create a point of collision potentially between business and universities, working through that slow machinery. I have found that machinery to be very slow in the public sector, for instance. The collaboration I said about with the prison and with judges and at-risk youth coordinators, it took so long to develop that. And there is the argument, I think, for wanting to find this continuation in funding. Funding, of course, has come up as a topic that came up in John's session and several of them as well. And how do we manage to keep the work funded so that the impact is ongoing and it's not just, a one-stop shop, as it were. I think other themes that came up as well have to do with sort of building constructive engagement across and communication across these disparate or seemingly disparate groups. I think Michael's comment at the beginning about commercialization and how some of us respond to a term like that, you know, it merits some discussion, I think, to think about how we share our language or how we respond to our language differences, if you will. Overcoming gaps is another issue that came up, I think, in the session with Ian. I was quite struck with that. And again, I think some of that is the gaps in cultures, if you will. And I think, Ian, if I read you right, we need to have workers who have these skill sets that can help us bridge these gaps. One of the things I did in folklore was to try to work with people's communication norms and try to meet people on their own, in their own sort of communication forms and norms, if you will. And I think that's something that we might be thinking about as we build skill sets for PhD students, MA students, is how to reach across these different groups. Because we're getting short on time, there's much more I could say, but I wanted to close out by saying, in terms of key strategies, we might think about working on this question of communication across these gaps. We might think more about the funding questions, particularly in light of COVID. I think that's quite crucial. It didn't come up much, but as Ian and I were discussing earlier today, it's an ongoing problem for a long time, and the effects on arts organizations is huge. I think we want to talk about the ways in which we can build some bridges across these different organizations and involving students in that process. I heard one student talking about how hard it was to get noticed, to have someone take a risk on you, which is an argument for having the universities really back and support our students. I've certainly been benefited by that in my own work connected to Manchester. And lastly, I think we might think about this idea of how we shape common purposes. And again, communication norms will be crucial. I want to close out by returning to Ian and Anne-Marie's comments about our forthcoming project, Deep Dive, in which we will be exploring best practice in creative industries, business engagement with social sciences research and creative arts research in both Yorkshire and Greater Manchester. Our colleague today is with us from York. We've got, Samuel Stockley Patel is with us today. I hope you're still on the call. He's going to be joining us as our York researcher. Very excited he was able to join us today. Collectively, we will be working on these outputs that include social sciences and creative industries business engagement report. That's for both of our regions. Good practice for social sciences and creative industries business engagement report, and a good practice guide aimed at HEI business engagement staff. And of course, we'll be looking at social media highlights and ways to disseminate this information. But mostly for your purposes today, you can expect that we'll be knocking on your doors, whether that's Samuel or myself. Largely, we have Manchester folks here today, but I will want to draw more fully on your expertise as we develop this deep dive study. So I'll look forward to partnering with you, moving forward and following up on the good discussions and work we've done here today. So thanks so much for having me participate.
Thanks so much, Alicia. That was fantastic and really an excellent summary of so much that we've got to talk about and you're going to work on over the next few months or so. And I think really you've summed it up. You're absolutely right. I think even before the era of COVID, these were important questions, and the way in which the arts and cultural sector and the way in which academia and institutions worked and partnered together, both to preserve but to enhance a lot of the activities that are very precious to us and which we think are worthwhile not only to ourselves but to the wider community as well. Well, if it was important before, it's clearly absolutely critical now in the era that we've entered into. And by working together, we have a chance in what we hope will be, or soon to be, the post-COVID environment. We have a chance to build back and build better a lot of the kind of elements that are very important to us, whether it's colleagues here who work in the arts and cultural sector and want to see it preserved, if not reinforced. And for those of us in academia and institutions who want to see ways in which we can help preserve, enhance, and reflect throughout our disciplines on the ways in which we interact with society. So as Alicia says, this is not the end of the story. And for those of you on the call today, we hope you'll be able and feel able to contribute more in the coming weeks and months. You'll have emails and calls coming to you to ask for a little bit more information. And we'd be very happy if you wanted to volunteer some of that and your reactions on today. We hope to do more of these, and we hope to build on this and show the ways in which through the social sciences and arts and culture, we can engage more forcefully with BE and show that there is a place in the future for art and commerce and much else besides, we hope as well. Anne-Marie, is there anything else that we need to draw attention to before we say goodbye for the afternoon?
No, I think that's everything, but just thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you, everybody. We do appreciate it and taking time out on a busy day. Take care, stay safe, and we hope to talk with you all very soon. Thanks once again.